What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and this is part 4 of my deep dive into the Moody Blues studio album Rabbit Hole. Long story short, had never heard of full Moody Blues albums, with an asterisk there, not paid attention to a full Moody Blues album. So I decided to go through the entire discography, having seen them on the top 25 prog rock bands of all time and the top 25 British rock bands of all time. And I'm like, I pretty much knew every other band on that list, literally. If not liked them, maybe not liked a couple, but knew them, had an opinion, no opinion about the Moody Blues. Thought I only knew 3 songs. Turns out I've known 2 others so far, having listened to the first 3 albums. So I know 5 songs I knew prior to doing this. We're now on album number 4, On the Threshold of a Dream. Obviously, this is their 4th album. Came out in 1969. Came out in 1969. There's a song on here, The Voyage. When I heard The Voyage for the first time, I was like, this sounds a lot like 2001, Thus Spake Zarathustra. The theme song, the one Fish plays, dun, dun, the theme song to 2001 Space Odyssey. I was like, The Voyage kind of reminds me of that. Sure enough, yeah, this came out about a year and a half after 2001 A Space Odyssey came out. So I think that had to be part of the influence. But I enjoyed this album, and I'm coming to realize a couple things about the Moody Blues. They do narration, the last 3 albums. The debut, I don't think there was any actual narration, but the last 2 albums have had like a narrative spoken track, both in the beginning and usually at some point in the end. I think both of them had something towards the end. And though I can't say I really like those, I will be honest and say I would prefer an instrumental even, or taking 2.5-minute spoken word parts and eliminating them and giving me a 3-minute psych song, I think would be my preference. But what the narration does that I'm kind of appreciating is it almost implies that the entire album is one continuous piece, that it's a story, that by necessity you must listen to the album, and that pulling out songs and judging them on like a standalone individual basis, yeah, you can do that. They're songs, but that's not how they're intended. They're intended to be listened from point A to point Z on an album. And the narration, I think, cements that idea into place. And to judge any particular song based on its standalone virtues is against what the Moody Blues were going for. I don't know if that's the case, but that's the way I feel when I listen to these albums, and I like that feeling. So anyways, this one's long, or at least song-wise. A lot more shorter songs, I think. 13 songs. The longest song is not even 5 minutes long. Starts off with a spoken word part. I think it's like this almost like, I don't know if it's an actual wind sound, but there's this droning sort of that kind of builds, reminds me of the wind. There's 2 spoken characters, I think, and one of them is like a normal voice. The other one's really kind of weird and sci-fi and tweaked out. Kind of awesome in that they're committing to this in a weird way. But then, as it does in the last album, it goes into this awesome psych song afterwards, this like psych pop rock song that really, the Moody Blues just kind of sound like nobody else. I don't really understand what their sound is, but every once in a while they drop these absolutely phenomenal psych rock gems. And the second song on this, Lovely to See You, is another one of these just phenomenal psych rock gems. Not like really heavy, crazy Jimi Hendrix psych rock, but like psych pop rock. Just fantastic stuff. This one is driven by some really nice guitar energy. There's kind of a little instrumental section that almost reminds me of the Allman Brothers. It seems like there's some like almost like Southern rock lines being played briefly for a little bit. Too short of a song. It's like 2.5 minutes long. Could have been 5. I kind of wish they had indulged this idea a little longer. It's fantastic. The third song, Dear Diary, sounds like kind of a soundtrack to like some like noir film, kind of just maybe some like 60s hippie noir film, and this would be like one of the songs used. It's got a really kind of cool, slow, moody vibe, a little jazzy, probably a little more than a little jazzy. has this like spoken outro part that actually works because it's like baked into the DNA of the song. Really, really, really neat little song. Um, the next song, Send Me No Wine, has kind of a country rock vibe kind of in there. It's a little more upbeat, a little more like Neil Young country rock, just kind of that kind of forward strolling motion. And it works. It's cool. It works very well. It complements what we've got so far on this album very, very well. The only song on this album, I think it's the next one. No, it's the one after that. The next one is To Share Our Love. The country rock song goes right into this. This is just an awesome, like pretty straightforward, like, psych pop rock song. Nice couple tempo changes in there that are pretty sweet. Another like less than 3 minute song. And then after that, there's a song called So Deep Within You, which is the one song which kind of to me almost doesn't, it sounds like my understanding of what the Moody Blues are. For some reason, this sounds different. I think it's whoever's doing the lead vocal. The vocal just sounds different than the other ones. There's just something about it that is a little okay. That's kind of a weird left field type thing. And there's some cool parts in it. We get some nice prog psychness in there. But by the end of it, it almost feels like if Jethro Tull's first album was a lot psychier and less blues rockier. Then there's a Jethro Tull early album vibe to this song. It's just weird. It sits in a weird place for me. The next song might be my favorite on this album. One of the best things I think I've heard so far by them. Never Comes the Day. This really pretty not calling attention to itself ballad to begin with, like an acoustic ballad. And then it kind of just slowly shifts gears and goes into this really awesome, rolling along, upbeat, just kind of like, I keep trying to like find an analogy because I know there's a lot, but I can't find the perfect one. Like I wanted to say War on Drugs at times, but it definitely is less motoric and more like a, if you're a My Morning Jacket fan, something like a circuital when they drop into that like that rolling rollicking beat after like the weird intro, that kind of vibe. And it's fantastic. It's like one of the coolest things I've heard them do. They go back into that ballad part in the middle and then they build it back up into this thing and this like awesome just upbeat part to end it. Never Comes the Day. Absolutely fantastic song. Fantastic song. Next comes Lazy Day, which is this almost like Beatles-esque, Paul Beatles-esque type light strolling ballad. I think there's a harmonic in here, some really nice singing, some great harmonies. We do get like psychier parts. I think I said on the previous album, there's a lot of Beatle-isms in what the Moody Blues do, but the Beatles always stop at taking it too deep down a psych rabbit hole and always kind of, for the most part, ignoring like the White Album or ignoring A Day in the Life. They usually refrain from getting too deep down that rabbit hole or chaotic, and they kind of stay, somewhat up there. Even something like Strawberry Fields or I Am the Walrus, that weirdness is still contained within that musical world. And Moody Blues kind of do a little things a little more unexpected at times. Lazy Day has a couple little like unexpected deeper proggier moments, despite the fact that also kind of sounds like a Paul song. Are You Sitting Comfortably? Asking that question because Merlin is going to cast his spell. Don't know what that's about. Hazy, dreamy, singing type acoustic ballad. The Dream, the spoken word monologue returns. This is when we get the title, On the Threshold of a Dream. Have You Heard Part 1? Kind of reminds me of like pre-Dark Side of the Moon, acoustic Floyd. Like maybe like something on side A of Metal, or maybe something from Obscured by Clouds. Like a sort of acoustic, not too jaunty, but also not too dour type vibe. Sort of soft Pink Floyd vibe. And then The Voyage is just this weird instrumental soundscape. We get some like 2001 Space Odyssey type overture type stuff. We get a nice, really awesome sort of piano ending that's pretty cool. Interesting song. And then that goes back into Have You Heard Part Two, and that sort of Pink Floyd type vibe ends the album. Um, it's a really, really good listen from start to finish. I do think the first five songs from In the Beginning through to Share Our Love, before we get that weird Jethro Tull song, are really strong. And then the first song on the next side is that Never Comes the Day, which is the best thing on here. I do think after that, it kind of dips a little bit. We kind of get a little too soft and a little too dreamy and all that stuff. But it's still pretty good. And I think, as I'm going to get to the rankings pretty soon, I think the second half of this holds up a little bit stronger than the second half of the album I listened to previously to this, which was not remembering these names, In Search of the Lost Chord. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I still really don't know if I have an understanding of what they're supposed to sound like, which is kind of cool, other than the fact that they make really, really good psych pop / rock. Lovely to See You, fantastic. Never Comes the Day, fantastic. Dear Diary, kind of weird and a little different, noir type, fantastic. Send Me No Wine, good country rock vibe in there. Some weird something in there. Really, really good stuff. So really, really enjoyed this album. Where would I rank? Oh, and I did not know any of these songs. I think I mentioned that, but none of these songs sounded familiar. I'm pretty sure I never heard any of these on the radio. I doubt any of these were a hit. I can't imagine which of them would be. So, but yeah, I'd never heard any of these. But where would I rank this among the other four I've listened to? I have it at number 2. I'm still absolutely fascinated by Days of Future Past. I keep returning to that one. I haven't gone back and listened to the Magnificent Moody's yet. Haven't gone back and listened to In Search of the Lost Chord once I moved on past that album. I've revisited Days of Future Past. I still am trying to come around to the first half of the album, but I think the second half of that album is just fantastic. And I think part of my love for that is I knew Tuesday Afternoon and I knew Nights in White Satin and did not have an appreciation for them, and I now have an appreciation for them, and it feels good. So anyways, that's all I got. Love to know your thoughts on this album. Yeah, I know very little about this band, so don't know where this ranks, what people think of this. But the title and the album cover of In Search of the Lost Chord seemed really, really, really familiar to me. So when I got to that album, I assumed it was one of their more iconic ones, just like Days of Future Past. And this one, I don't think I'd ever heard the name of, but I do think this one is better than In Search of the Lost Chord. Definitely doesn't have the big moments like the first half of In Search of the Lost Chord, but I also don't think there's really anything weak on here. Just weird. But yeah, all right. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this album, on the Moody Blues. Subscribe, like, share, comment, do all those things. And yeah, go listen to this music. It's really good 60s like pop. I know they're a prog band, but it definitely seems more psychedelic rock in a pop way than prog. But there are elements of other stuff, so that's the prog element. Anyways, it's good stuff. All right, I'm rambling. Peace. Talk to you later.